Hello everyone, today is 17th of December. My name is Sahil and welcome to the newspaper analysis. Now guys, first of all, let's have a look on today's GS folder. Friends, today we'll take a quote from the great Albert Einstein, the notable physicist. He says that the world as we have created, it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. Guys, I believe that this idea resonates with the idea of Mahatma Gandhi ji, where Gandhi ji says that what you think becomes your speech, what you speak becomes your action, and as you act, you make the world. So essentially, without bringing a fundamental change into the thought processes, into the attitude, the change cannot come. And this thing is true not only onto the individual level, but onto the entire societal level, institutional level, as well as government's level. For example, onto the societal level, if a collective thinking or if a collective conscience against removal of the discrimination, inequality, etc. will not be coming, till then there is no reform possible. Similarly, onto the governmental level, if the attitude, thinking, or the thought process of removing the corruption, mismanagement will not come, similarly, there will also be no change. So guys, thinking precedes the change, and this particular quote we can use into the GS paper number 4 into the questions of the attitude, as well as into the questions as how the ethical behavior comes from the ethical thinking. Further guys, this particular thing can also be used into the GS paper number 2 governance related question, where we can say that the change in government doesn't comes without the change into the government's thinking. Now, guys, the first article, this has been taken from the Hindu newspaper and it is talking about the recent Human Development Index 2020, which has been released by the United Nations Development Program as a part of their Human Development Report. Now, guys, into this 2020 edition, the Human Development Report has been titled as the Next Frontier, Human Development and the Anthropocene. Now, Anthropocene is a proposed epoch or a proposed period into the Earth's history in which we will see that how Earth have changed or impacted the ecosystem. Now, guys, into the 2020 version of this particular report, actually the data from the 2019 has been taken. So, whenever we are talking about this 2020 report, it will not be including the impact of the COVID 19 pandemic, because this particular phenomena became notorious after the month of January only. So into 2021 report, actually the 2020 phenomena will be stated. Now guys, into this particular year, India had ranked 131 out of 189 countries, and when we talk about the 2019 Human Development Index, India's rank was 129. So therefore we can say that India had slipped the 2 rank. Now guys, here you can see that when we compare with the peers, the Russia has been ranked onto the 52nd position, the India has been ranked onto the 131 position, the China has been ranked onto the 85th position. Now guys, Human Development Index, when we see, it is calculated onto the three broad parameters. Number one is the long and healthy life, in which life expectancy at the birth is seen. Then the second indicator is the parameter is the knowledge, where expected years of schooling and mean years of schooling are seen. And the third parameter is the decent standard of living, which is seen onto the basis of the GNI per capita onto the purchasing power parity basis. Then guys, the different countries are given the different score onto basis of three these parameters, and finally the ranking of the different countries are derived. Now guys, there are majorly three groups in which the countries are ranked. One are the low development index countries, then the middle development, and the high development countries. Now guys, India has ranked into the category of the middle development. We can see the score of India, it has been 0.645 in 2019, and it is actually a kind of an improvement from 0.642 into the previous year. However, the overall ranking has been dropped. Now furthermore guys, into this particular year, there is something new which has been introduced into the Human Development Index, and that is the planetary pressure adjusted HDI, or the PHDI. Now, PHDI accounts that what would be the rank of the country if we also account the resources that they have consumed. That is the carbon footprint that they have given out, the metals and all such kind of thing that they have utilized. And into this particular parameter, if we see, then India will actually increase by 8 ranks. So it means that India's consumptions of the resources have not that been much. However, at the same time, 50 countries will drop out from the high human development category if we account them onto the PHDI. Specifically, if we talk about Australia, Australia's ranking will fall by 72. Then the US and Canada's ranking will fall by 45 and 40. Now, this particular thing is showing us one issue very clearly, that up till now, the debate of a sustainable development, how it can be brought, it has not been resolved. The moment high growth is taken up, it compromises onto the ecology, onto the carbon footprint. So, as soon as possible, this particular thing is needed to be identified, that how the high development along with the sustainableness can be continued. Further, guys, there are certain other important notabilities also into the Human Development Index report. It has actually been said that into the India, the ownership of land actually works into the favor of the women, and it improves the women's security, as well as the gender based violence is reduced when the women are owning the lands. So it means that owning land can empower the women. This particular thing has also been noted. Now, guys, this particular infographic has been taken from the Mint newspaper, and it is a very important reference which could be utilized into our answers. Now, we have seen, particularly into the post pandemic world, that the deglobalization has become a very prominent phenomena, and even into the India, a kind of a deglobalization can be seen under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan that the government has taken up. Now, guys, what had happened? The global trade alert has been created, and into this the country has been shown according to the protectionist policies that they have taken up. And into this protectionism index, we can see that the India is ranking into the mid, where relatively more protectionist efforts has been taken, whereas the countries such as the US and Canada, they are ranking very high onto the protectionism index. Now, this protectionism index is based on to the unilateral actions that has been taken by the governments, their regulators such as central banks, which might impact the speed of the globalization. So, guys, just please give the reference of the GTA's protectionism index, and you can say that India has actually also been the protectionist in wake of the pandemic of COVID-19. So that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Mint newspaper, and it is talking as how the pandemic is unleashing a kind of an individualism into the people. So, under the topics of the impact of COVID-19, we will be seeing it, guys. Very important for GS paper number 4 as well as GS paper number 1, social issues. See, it has been said that the human is a social animal, and it has been accustomed to the collective behavior, collective living, and the group interactions. But when the pandemic come, it discouraged such collective behavior, and now individuals are more finding themselves to interact into the isolationism, and this isolation has even been increased by the technology solutions which has been provided. And guys, into such a notion, a feeling of individualism is increasing into the people. Now, first of all, when we talk about individualism, it has been called as a notion where a person believes to be more self-reliant rather than depending onto the community. Particularly, the French philosopher Alexis de Tocqueville had said that the individualism refers to a kind of a moderate selfishness where humans are only concerned with their own circle as well as own friends. And into the extreme sense, individualism means extreme selfishness where a person is not concerned about anyone, and the pandemic is fueling such notion of individualism into the people. And guys, even after this pandemic will be subsiding, the communal attachment which was there before, it will not be the case, because even into the work, the plans are progressing that the MNCs and corporates, they will not be allowing the physical occupation of the office spaces and the work from home or the limited office hours will be there. Even the virtual meetings, etc., will be giving a new definition to the work, and here more individualism will be coming. Guys, it has been said even into the religious spheres, people are finding that they can give their homages, give their praise in sitting onto the home only, and other into other such spaces also such kind of thing has become coming, and it has been made facilitated by the technological assistance. Now, guys, into the article, certain instances have been shown where it was said that when the people focused more onto the individualism, certain of the good reforms have also been brought. For example, guys, number one, into the Greece, thousands of years back, when people started to talk about individualism, the democracy was the result. Everybody's right of the self government was recognized. Secondly, guys, when the church was becoming very much autocratic during the medieval times, and again when the individualism was asked about, there was the leader Martin Luther led up the Protestant movement, and by that Protestant movement a blow onto the church's hegemony came, and the forces such as the capitalism came, which made the society more prosperous. And now, guys, the third wave has come, and it is said that now again the individualism is being more talked about into the pandemic, and it will be bringing some irreversible changes into the society. Particularly, guys, here the reference has been given to about a Nobel Prize winner economist Edmund Phelps, and Edmund Phelps had said that the more individualistic society will be there, people will be more concerned about their own welfare. It will be more using the labor and capital prudently. It has been believed that when the individualism comes, a spirit of dynamism also comes, a kind of a vitalism, self expression comes, and it leads to the visionarism. Visionarism means that people can look onto a better picture when they are not all the time concerned about their entire community but about themselves. Now, guys, even a reference has been given by the great Hofstede, who is a social psychologist, and it has been said by him that more of an individualism creates more of the national wealth and therefore promotes the economic performance of the country. And it has been said that the pandemic might bring a kind of some positive implications for the India also. Now, guys, we can see this particular thing by the help of certain examples. What has happened now after the pandemic? The individualism inducing technologies such as relying entirely onto the apps and technological solutions had increased. And now when the people will be using these technological solutions, then the traditional brick and mortar based establishments, they will try to fight back, and they need to show to the society that how the community interactions are more of a good thing. For example, guys, now the retail outlets need to show that how it is more enjoyable to shop into the physical shops rather than onto the online platforms. Similarly, guys, the universities, the educational institutions, they have to demonstrate that how it is more enjoyable to learn to coming onto a physical campus rather than taking the online classes. And into this particular thing, an entirely new level of consumer experiences, consumer centricism will be coming. So, guys, into this particular way, the pandemic will be bringing such kind of changes. So that's it about this particular article, a very important article for our social paper as well as for the essays. So, guys, that's it. Now we'll be moving to the next article. This particular article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the challenges which are lying ahead for the WTO, the World Trade Organization. Now, guys, when we talk about WTO, the Director General is the most important functionary, and it is responsible for supervising and directing the entire organization's administrative operations. Now, guys, WTO's DG's selection is due into the 2020 because the incumbent DG, that is the Roberto Azevedo, his term is about to expire. Now there are certain of the contenders which were put forward, and two of the contenders are now the finalists, and these both of them are the women. One woman from the Nigeria and one of the women from the South Korea, and one of them will be becoming the Director General, and this is historic because none other women had held this particular position before. Now, guys, it has been said that these new Director Generals, they need to take up some of the challenging tasks. Number one, WTO had to make sure that how into the post-pandemic world trade can be revived and onto the levels of a pre-COVID world, the trade can be increased. Secondly, guys, there are some of the long-going controversy. Number one is the Doha Development Agenda. Now, guys, under the Doha Development Agenda, basic contention is that the developed countries they promised to the developing countries that they need to take steps for the trade facilitation. Trade facilitation means that they need to remove the barriers of the trade, and in return, the developed countries will be providing the economic assistance to the developing countries. Such a thing was made under the Doha Development Agenda. However, guys, the trade facilitation was taken up by the developing countries into the Bali Ministerial, where it was agreed by the developing countries that the barriers will be reduced. But after that, the developed countries they are not talking about the Doha Development Agenda, and the developing countries are still asking it. So, how to resolve it? It will be a kind of a challenging task in front to the WTO. Then, guys, the third task is that how the agenda of the dispute settlement into the WTO can be made much more relevant, because the present mechanism is not reflecting the interest of the developing countries. Then, guys, the next controversy is the definition of the developing countries. See, it has been said that the developing countries they have taken up the huge advantage of the WTO under the principle of special and differential treatment. Therefore, now this particular definition has to be changed, and there are certain countries such as the Egypt, Turkey, particularly, guys, onto the India and China, the impact will be there, because it has been said that they are the emerging countries, and therefore such kind of benefits should not be given to them. However, guys, specifically when we take the case of the India, this particular thing is very clear that India is still into the developing phase, and all the special and differential treatment are needed for increasing the economic potentialities of the India. Then, guys, the next issue which is coming is onto the fishery subsidy. Now, 2 days back also we had seen this particular argument that the WTO had taken the deadline of 2020 to eliminate the subsidies onto the fishing, because 34% of the global fishing stocks they have been depleted. Now, guys, India and China were the two who used to, who were asked that they should take up certain argument, but India refused, because large number of fishing community is dependent onto these type of subsidies. Now, guys, here it has been said that into this particular respect, India needs to take a lead and needs to find a sustainable solution in which the subsidies can be provided. It doesn't distort the trade, and it doesn't basically pushes the developed country also to come into the fishery, because if they also started to give the subsidies, then the problem of the marine resource exploitation will be even more worse. So India need to find a kind of a sustainable solution. And then, guys, the sixth challenge in front of the WTO is to fight with the negative impacts of the COVID-19. It has to be identified that how the supply chains as well as the vaccine rollout can be made more effective. Moreover, guys, right now to fight the pandemic, huge intellectual collaborations will be needed. It needs to be seen by the WTO that the voluntary sharing and pooling of the intellectual property right is there, so that for the collective humanity a kind of a solution can be brought out, that how we can fight with the pandemic. Right now the exclusivism should not dictate the policies of any one country, particularly the vaccine nationalism should not become the issue. Guys, we need to fight collectively, and this collectiveness also needs to explore into the WTO. So these are some of the challenges which are going to coming into the post pandemic world. Guys, a very good article, a question can be asked on to this particular line. So that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, this particular article has been taken from the Hindu newspaper, and it is talking about the some of the paradoxes that India is facing, and that is the paradox of plenty. Paradox of plenty means that on one hand there is so much of the food grain that is being produced by India, and even the food grain is being wasted, but on to the second hand there are so many hungry people in India. Now, guys, the prevalence of hunger can be seen by the Global Hunger Index 2020, where India has attained the 94th rank. India is having 23% of world's undernourished people. Guys, India's ranking with respect to the hunger security is even worse than many of the African countries, and this is happening at the time when under article number 21 the Supreme Court has declared right to food, and even government had come out with the National Food Security Act, in which the 66% people of the India has been guaranteed the food. And guys, it is nothing but the failure of the India's democracy. Now in 2018 and 19 you can see that 283.37 million tons of food grains were produced. And guys, at the same time, even the Department of Consumer Affairs said that 62,000 ton of food grains were damaged into the FCI godowns between 2011 and 2017. Now see this particular thing along with the number of the hungry people that are in India. At the same time, guys, there are some other disturbing things also. For example, according to a study conducted by the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relation, it has been said that in India, at the same time, there are the bogus ration cards who are getting the undue advantage, and at the same time, there are genuinely poor families who are not able to access the food grain. So it shows that how inadequate is the India's food ecosystem. Now, for this particular thing, it has been said that government needs to follow a two-pronged approach. Number one, government need to provide MSP for large number of food products so that the farming becomes profitable in India and the quantity of food grain is maintained. And secondly, it has been said that the PDS system needs to be reformed so that the inefficiency can be reduced. After that, government also need to work on some of the flagship schemes, and the anomalies which have been there, they are needed to be removed. The case in point is the Annapurna scheme. Now guys, under the Annapurna scheme, the people who are above the 65 years of age, they are provided the 10 kgs of food grains. Now these people are one who are having no subsistence or a very meager subsistence, but into the Annapurna scheme certain conditionalities have been there which are defeating the purpose. Guys, the center government had said that the number of beneficiaries under the Annapurna scheme are to be fixed. How they will be fixed? According to government, the target of 20% of the number of person who are eligible for national old age pension but who are not receiving such pension, they will be given the benefit. It means, guys, first of all, how many people will be given the food here? The number will be calculated in such a way that suppose if there are 100 people who receives the pension, then the 20% of such people will be the beneficiaries. That is, the 20 people can get the Annapurna scheme food, but no one should actually be receiving the pension here. Is it clear? So guys, the number will be derived onto the basis of the beneficiaries, but actual beneficiaries of the pensions, they will not get any food under the Annapurna. Now it has been said that particularly if we talk about the Kerala has been a very state good onto the governance parameters, and it has actually included all the people who are eligible under the pension to be getting the benefit. And by the design, they can't now get the benefit of the Annapurna scheme. So this particular anomaly needs to be corrected. After that, guys, it has been provided by the Global Pulse Federation that a healthy and balanced diet need to have an important element of the pulse, because pulse can plays an important role in preventing the cancer, diabetes, heart diseases. And even the World Food Program had said that a person should consume 60 gram of pulses into a food basket. But guys, when we talk about in India, the consumption of pulse is increasing, but the production has not been kept the pace. So into this particular light, MSP is again needed to be streamlined. So guys, these are some of the important parameters. Guys, a very important topic for our GS paper number 2, hunger. So that's it, and now we'll be taking up the next article. Now, guys, this particular article is talking about the uniform divorce alimony rules in India. Now, first of all, this particular article is important for our GS paper number 2. Now, what had happened? Into a Supreme Court, a plea has been filed that the in India rules with respect to the divorce, separation, alimony, maintenance after the separation, they are not uniform. And into this particular thing, there are certain of the marginalized women who face a kind of segregation and a discrimination, and it leads to the violation of their fundamental right, particularly article number 14 and article number 15. So a kind of a gender injustice is coming. Some religions, they they don't recognize the right of the women to receive the alimony or the maintenance money. So we want to have a kind of a uniform structure. But guys, into this particular category already there are the personal laws, and the personal laws are little bit different onto the basis of religion. So basically this plea is asking that India should bring a kind of a uniform civil code. However, guys, a uniform civil code is to be brought by the government, and Supreme Court actually is tied into this particular respect. All those uniform civil code has already been mentioned into the article number 44 of the Indian Constitution into the DPSP. But whether to bring it or not, it there are large number of criticism. On one hand, it is said that if the uniformity in all such personal laws will be there, then how we will call that India celebrates its diversity? It is just bringing a kind of a uniformness. Moreover, it is said that whenever the UCC or the Uniform Civil Code is talked, it is nothing but it is assumed the imposition of the Hindu culture on all the minorities, and onto that particular front, further it will be bringing the polarization into the societies. But guys, on to the other hand, the arguments into the favor of UCC are also given, saying that into the name of having the separate laws, women are the sufferers, and therefore their own welfare, UCC will be a good thing, so we should bring it. So guys, this is just a kind of a thing. However, nothing very substantial into the article has been given. So that's it, and now we'll be moving to the next article. Now, guys, here we can see that as the vaccines are being developed around the world, a phenomena of vaccine hesitancy is being developed. Vaccine hesitancy means that there are large number of people who don't want to right away take the shots of the vaccine because they are fearful that what impact onto the body will be created, because many of these vaccines are coming out of the emergency use authorization, and the final approval has actually not been given. And historically, for the first time in such a swift manner, the vaccine had been developed. So whether it will be having a positive impact or negative impact, it has created a fear, and this fear has led to the vaccine hesitancy. And in India also, such vaccine hesitancy is very much prominent. Even the people belonging to the medical community or the healthcare professionals, they are also hesitant. So guys, some of the data here we can see it. According to a survey which was carried, it was said that the 64% people prefer to have an antibody test before taking up the vaccination, and into the antibody test, if the test is negative, only then the 47% of people will take the vaccine as soon as it is made available, and if the antibody test is positive, then only 29% people will be taking the vaccine. Now guys, this particular thing shows a clear fact that how the attitude plays an important role. Guys, into our GS paper number 4, the attitude has been provided, and as the vaccine will become available, India might face a new kind of attitude where people, despite of having the vaccine, might not go for it, and the chain of transmission of COVID-19 might not be broken as now it is being assumed. So guys, into this particular capacity also, certain attitudinal changes into the people are to be brought about. So guys, that's all about the important articles for the today's newspaper. I hope that you have understood them. Thank you so much.